GM Fox fam, we're gonna wait a minute or two for sure before we get started here to just allow people to trickle in, so enjoy the lo-fi beats. What up, Fox fam? I feel like that's a pretty good outro from Lo-Fi Radio there for me to hop in and start talking. Welcome to Operations Office Hours. Got a few of us here in Ops on stage. I'm sure there'll be a couple more Ops joining us as well. See some familiar faces out in the crowd. Hopefully some new folks that are interested in learning more about operations and what we do here at the DAO in this work stream. So this is a great call to get caught up on what we're doing in all things operations. I'm sharing my screen in the Zoom, which is shared inside the stage chat if you'd like to follow along. I've got a little agenda I drew up this morning of what I'd like to talk about, but also we kind of leave these office hours to be loose and allow people to kind of ask questions, talk to us about what's going on. So if you have questions throughout this, feel free to type them out in the stage chat or raise your hand and we can even get you up on stage to chat more with us. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. And without further ado, I'll probably get right into the agenda. The first thing that I have on the list is that we finally got the new job descriptions posted on the bounties board. If you're not familiar with that, it is in our Notion that Growth has kindly been putting together and maintaining. So I'm now navigating to that on our screen, and I'm going to go through the job description a little bit. You can find it. I think it might be hopefully someone will link it in the stage chat while I'm chatting about this. But you can also find it if you go to the bounties and jobs board right underneath channel right underneath the general channel. Once there, you'll just roll all the way down to operations. And you'll see we got 2 positions for operations assistants. Operations is looking for a few passionate contributors to join the work stream and all things operationally based in the ShapeShift DAO and ShapeShift product suite. There's also a Google Drive here to the actual job description we're going to talk about. If you are interested in applying for one of these roles, please reach out to me, and we can get you started with the next steps. And you guys can submit cover letters and or resumes to tyler@shapeshift@gmail.com so I can take a look at that. And I'd like to take a moment too to highlight that if you would like to, if you're interested, we are in this new DAO world, and one of the things operations has fully leaned into in how we interface with this is that I don't necessarily need to know everything about you as if we were interacting in a more corporate environment where you were receiving a W-2 and things like that. So there are a lot of people that are a little more security minded when it comes to crypto. That's kind of to be expected. So when applying for a job like this, if you are interested in keeping some of that personal information to yourself, you can provide a resume that's in some form of pseudo-anonymity. We even have a member on our team right now, Never Was, who successfully did such and still got a position for an ops assistant. And I'm not sure what his first name is or where he lives or any of those things that the personal identifiable information that some people might be want to not share. So if that's too much of an issue and you just want to send a resume, I can keep that information private and it doesn't get shared with anyone else, and I'm happy to look at all those things. But if you'd like to scrub your resume when sending it to me, I'm happy to accept it in that form. I guess we'll just dive right into this job description real quick. There's an about us that talks about ShapeShift, ShapeShift's previous history, and ShapeShift's now moving into the future of the DAO. Of course, all of you guys on this call know a bit about ShapeShift, maybe not more about the DAO than about previous ShapeShift, but yeah, there's a little bit of history in there and catching people up to what's going on. And then there's a job overview that I'm going to let everyone kind of read on their own, but just discuss at a high level. Operations handles almost everything dealing with triage, with testing, and maintaining collaboration and between work streams to maintain a healthy developing environment, and continually scaling and increasing our output, our flow, our features. We're kind of the glue that holds everything together. So we're a little bit of jack of all trades, but it also means that we don't need to be necessarily extremely skilled in the development side. Those traits do come in handy, and if you have no development experience, we're definitely going to get you to be more experienced with something like a terminal command line, and looking at code a little bit just to see errors and inspect things in the dev tools and things like that. So it's not a coding school or anything like that, but we will get your hands a little bit dirty with the tech that's going on here. I came from no coding background and happened to be able to wander my way through GitHub and things like that pretty successfully now from my experience. So there's definitely not a need for you to have a coding school on your resume to be applying for this job. Although I will say that there are some people on the team here who do have some experience with writing, and that does come in handy and helpful for different tasks and resources. So yeah, if you do have a lot of experience coding, I would also say that there are positions open and available in the engineering workstream right now and bounties, and there might be ways for you to contribute there that might be even more beneficial to your interests or talents. So I will say what you'll do if you're in an ops assistant. We oversee system monitoring efforts for all front-facing products, and we're stay aware and respond promptly to issues. We've got a prod issues channel, a triage channel, and correspondence with support and the CMODs to kind of have our eyes and ears on the ground for anything that shows up in prod-facing environments. Learn and understand at a high level the intricacies of what both makes the product work and the DAO function. I spent a lot of time kind of talking about the product suite so far. But one of the other things we do is a lot of organizational management, admin sort of things for the DAO itself, whether that's meeting notes or organizing meetings, the ops sprint, the governance call, or archiving all of this information. All of this are things that house very nicely inside operations. And so we are kind of able to be secretaries and organizers of all things DAO. So that's kind of a second hat that we would wear in addition to us being testers for the product suite and all things crypto that we are building into our app. Support continuous lines of communication, keeping the operations work stream leader informed of all critical issues and progress of bugs, deployment states. So we'll actually get a little bit into this later. We just did our first release on the new release procedure for the DAO, and we've got some notes about how we handled it. And I'm going to open up the floor when we get to that on the agenda to all of our great ops assistants so far who've done testers, so you can see a little bit of the process of what we've been going through. And maybe we'll even have some notes on how we can improve the process a little bit each time as we go. Inside this job description, though, we've also still got maintaining understanding and active participation in the DAO's operation workstream, procedures and functions, regression and deployment testing of the ShapeShift product suite, and embrace change and ambiguity in a constantly changing environment. So kind of, summary of everything that I've been talking about beforehand, but also we're definitely looking for people who are willing to lean into the chaos here. Some days will be brand new information. There might be something that changes the entire crypto ecosystem that we need to react to and build new systems for. There might be something just inside our internal system that's a change of focus or product features or things like that that completely turn our old procedures on its head, and we need to be able to adapt and continue to scale in the hopes of progress for the DAO. So what we're looking for out of people that might be interested in this role is that you have an eye for continuous improvement, a mind for efficiency and decentralization, that you can collaborate regularly with your peers, that you have organizational and critical thinking skills, a passion for driving operational excellence across the DAO. And then, if you got any blockchain or crypto experience, those are definite pluses, but definitely not requirements to get your foot in the door if you'd like to start somewhere like the operations workstream with this DAO. So I haven't looked at the stage chat. Not sure if anyone's been asking questions. I do see a question related to the new 1.04. Let's hop on that a little bit later, but thanks for the question, you. So that's the job description. Anyway, if anyone has questions about the job description of the process, please ask now or raise your hand, or I can also stop chatting for a second if anyone on the stage has some more to add to this.
He will definitely learn you up real quick. I definitely didn't know anything about the coding side of stuff, and now I'm opening up the dashboard and testing and looking for errors on a regular basis. So it's a bit overwhelming at first, but even a simple accountant like me can learn about it. So as a +1 to Tyler's ability to train people up, and Never Was is a great help as well with his background as well.
Thanks for that, Ron. You're more than just a simple accountant, though. You're our one and only Ron. You wear so many hats and do so many things, even outside of this work stream. And it's a pleasure that we get you to spend some time with us, testing things and helping make our work stream better.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Well, I would add to that, Tyler, that the personality and the mindset that Ron brings to the team pays very particular sense to detail, and can track changes and stuff like that. So even though he might not have, like you said, the coding background, he has a very traits that are very helpful, and that he's able to spot bugs very quickly and easily sometimes, and some things that others might glaze over because they're going through stuff. So I definitely see that trait as a very big asset to a team that is testing and looking for things. So Ron, we are very grateful to have that ability added to the team.
I think that speaks to is that we can utilize a whole bunch of different skills and talents across different, I don't know, disciplines that people have here, and kind of with our powers combined, create the best Captain Planet operations work stream that we can. So, yeah, that's more to the fact that if you've got some skill sets in some other areas that maybe you could see improvements in the DAO here or the product suite that haven't kind of been highlighted in everything that we've come up with and built so far, you might be the addition to the team we're looking for to help us tie the room together or bring that skill set to the forefront. So yeah, definitely open to how others out there might be interested in embracing the chaos with us successfully, and would love to get that input from you guys. If there's no more on the job descriptions, how much bounty work is there for operations? Good question from Seth. Right now, the only thing that operations is doing bounty-wise is continuing to build out the process of the triage funnel into bounty tickets. And that's one that still kind of goes through approval with Ocean before those go out. And we'd really love to get to the point that we can be spinning out our own bounty tickets on that end first. In terms of bountying for testing and things like that, we have done like some tip bounties and things like that in the past for people who have reported issues, and we still do that kind of thing. If you're not in a work stream and are able to help us through our process or help us find a bug or something like that, we're happy to send some bounties out that way. I know that there's the coordinate structure for bountying further things and having payments outside of our current work stream. And I do have hopes to apply that inside operations. We just don't have the rails currently, I feel, for that to be successful and not maybe redundant outside of what our current testing procedures are. But I'm hopeful to catch up to that and really figure out how we can best use Coordinate as well. Because I think what I'm seeing is this entire process that we brought over from centralized ShapeShift and operations has been expedited in the DAO. We get things so much done so much quicker here now in operations that we ever did in terms of processes, in terms of bugs getting fixed, in terms of finding an issue and finding someone to like push it out all the way back through to prod. I've always been impressed with that. So I want to make sure that we get our Rails set up correctly, and then I'm sure that we will have a plethora of new work thrust upon us that we will be able to find proper ways to bounty out to. So yeah, I know that that's probably where your interest is driving, Seth, for bounties there. And we're not closing the door on Coordinate at all. We're just want to make sure that we have our infrastructure set up correctly before we do that for what an appropriate payment for task looks like. And we're still actually building out our complete repo and documentation of newly updated requirements for our own testing stuff. So one foot in front of the other is how I'm trying to take this, and I hope that we'll have our repo fully updated and agreed to and kind of peer reviewed opposite the rest of the work streams to make sure that everyone is in lockstep with their expectations from operations right now currently. And then I hope we'll be able to kind of scale and grow out beyond that into the future bounty procedures and things like that. Because yeah, I think that operations can definitely continue to lead forward as one of the most DAO centric work streams of having people all over the world, having people on different schedules, leaning into bounties. We're not quite up to snuff with growth yet, but we're getting there. So yeah, any other questions or comments about the job descriptions or even about that with bounties and the future of bounties? All right, I'll hop back over to our agenda for a second. The next thing I wanted to cover, sorry, after this, I'm gonna get off my soapbox, and we'll let everyone else kind of chat, and there'll be more of an open conversation. But I got one more thing to go over, and that's the team agreement. There's never been like a full organized conversation about our entire work streams, expectations, kind of in the work environment and things like that. We've had them individually one-on-one, but just to kind of set the table and set an example for other work streams if they would like to as well. And I can't take full credit because I did take a skeleton of this from the product work stream, who also has a really great team agreement that you should check out in their Notion if you haven't. But we set one up ourselves as well for operations. And I'm going to go over to that now. I'm going to chat a little bit about it. It's got some themes, some goals, kind of responsibilities, and descriptions about expectations. So if you guys will pleasure me for a second, I even added some quotes at the top of this that I think are really key in highlighting what we do at operations. That's kind of outlined in the rest of this team agreement. So I'm going to go over them and chat a little bit about those and then get into this. So there's a quote from Aristotle in Metaphysics, a really, really old book. In the case of all things which have several parts and in which the totality is not, as it were, a mere heap, but the whole is something besides the parts, there is a cause. For even in bodies, contact is the cause of unities in some case, and in others viscosity or some other such quality. So this is just a really old quote that is kind of surmising that some is different than the parts sort of thing. And one of the things I've realized in this DAO, and have tried to continue to push forward, is that our collaborative spirits, both in our work stream as well as in our work stream to relationship, or even kind of in a greater petri dish, our DAO to DAO relationships, are all things that create something that is not what's to be expected from putting our powers to combine. It's something that's more, it's greater, it's this cool process that I hope we continue to lean into. Then a newer quote from jazz great Charles Mingus. Creativity is more than just being different. Anybody can play weird. That's easy. What's hard is to be as simple as Bach. Making the simple complicated is commonplace. Making the complicated simple, awesomely simple, that's creativity. And so, I don't know, I love jazz, I love Mingus, I love Bach too. And there's some truth in that I wanted to add here, in that while we're custodians and organizers and admins of what's going on in operations, our goal is to hopefully continually make things simple, that there's some beauty and niceness to being concise. I know I'm kind of a long-winded person. I'm working on being more concise myself. But in our processes, for sure, there's something to how we can both organize and detail everything that we do in operations, but do it in such a way that is concise and beautiful, you know? The next and even newer quote from Samuel Beckett, who's a theater great that I really love as well. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. This is, he's like a really cool existentialist that plays with poetry and theater too. If you're not familiar with him, I would highly recommend checking him out. But this is one of those quotes that reminds me of kind of like a metaphor or an adage of falling in holes to figure out where they are so you can navigate around them and not step in them another time. And one of the things that we in operations and kind of people in crypto in general and startups and tech in general embrace is embracing failure and learning how to learn from our mistakes and be agile. So that's the heart of that quote. And then the last quote, the most recent quote from our very own John is John, just testnet, schmestnet. And that's something I super believe in. I hope that's not to say that there aren't benefits to testnets, but just because it worked in staging doesn't mean it's going to work the same way in prod. And that's something that we in operations believe in our bones and will continue to trust, or to verify before trusting. So with that, I'll just go over the overall themes of operations. So we give the benefit of the doubt. If you feel like there's not something being communicated inside something that's happening in direct communications at our Discord or something like that, get clarification. It's really hard to understand tone and emotion via text, and it's very easy to assume other things. So please, let's give the benefit of the doubt to our contributors. Don't assume, and let's have a conversation, get that clarification. Provide support and resources to the rest of the DAO contributors. That's what we at operations are here to do, just to be support. Well, outside of the support work stream, that is. Maintain focus on priorities. The DAO is very big, it moves very quickly, and is distracting. There's enough work to be done here that all of us could busy our hands and our minds with things, and I don't know, we could make the room look real nice, but we could potentially lack focus on the priorities that could be pushing us forward to scale and build more. So it's always a game of reassessing priorities. Sometimes that's on a large scale, sometimes that's on a scale as small as daily priorities or even hourly priorities. Operations is the glue, backbone, stage managers, testers, and eyes and ears of the DAO. That's very, very true. Be prepared, supportive, direct, and respectful, and don't trust, verify. That's a adage from the Bitcoin community that, and also security-minded people that we also lean into very strongly here in operations. I don't see any comments so far on the stage, so I'm going to keep steamrolling y'all with this. In general, the first note I've got here is a responsibilities priority tree. Kind of talking what we just did about how the DAO is very big and full of things. We could find ourselves spending an entire day or an entire week on any one of these tiers or branches of our responsibility priority tree. But I've broken this down into what I feel if there is an issue to be resolved or time to be spent in operations. This is where we maintain our focuses. And often you'll find that we have pressing requests or issues on multiple of these tiers. So it becomes a level of prioritizing where do we spend our focus or how do we split our focuses to be able to maintain support across all requests. So we start with prod issues, things that are breaking things live in production. That happens, that's always going to take priority over another call or something like that. Below that, deployment testing requests. We just did deployment 1.0.4 today, and there were some triage tickets that were discovered outside of that. And instead of spending the time to go do those triage tickets now, we decided to opt for priority of doing the rest of the deployment test to fulfill that and make sure that we can no longer be a blocker for anyone from the engineering team or any representatives that might be waiting on this deployment to get in looks good to me. So we do that before we move down to our triage post, recreations and responses. And this is the triage channel. I feel like we've talked about this in previous operations office hours, and if you're not familiar with it, reach out to one of us in operations, and we'll get you access to it and show you what we do in that channel. Down to scheduled regression testing, we're poking and prodding at the app pretty regularly just to make sure that everything is working as expected and there's no breaks that are introduced by a dependency that doesn't belong to us or something breaks on our side as well. So we're kind of checking in on that regularly as well. Down to DAO community call participation. We have a lot of calls. And one of the things I think we'll be trying to exercise a muscle in operations is choosing which calls are optional versus making all of them mandatory so we can make sure that we're maintaining our responsibilities elsewhere. And then finally, individual projects. There's a lot of one-off organization work that we will be splitting up between all of these ops assistants, and that is the lowest priority for us in terms of getting them done unless the timeline has increased them up the chain. So that's our responsibility tree. Other things inside general here in this team agreement, support other operations workstream contributors. We all keep the spinning plates going. Communication, teamwork, recreation, redundancy, and knowledge sharing are how we make the workstream and DAO mature and scale successfully. And establish and maintain a shared specific repository for all personal contributions to operations projects. So this is something we haven't been good at in the past at operations, and I'm going to force us to be better at it. And we are going to document everything that we do as we do it to make sure that we can scale and grow. I think that's one of the things that's kind of lacking in our onboarding process and lots of other ways is proper documentation. So we are going to be the bastion examples of doing this by making this the thing we are the best at, even though right now we are not in the best state. There's some notes here on deliverables, about deliverables both inside operations and coming from other work streams. And the notes here, just to make sure that you have clear communication and understanding around acceptance criteria, resources, and timelines, and that there may be times that work gets thrust upon us that might not be appropriate for operations. Kind of take care of the work stream to take of it, or yeah, those are kind of understandables about deliverables inside the work stream. Manage meeting and time deliverables to all committed projects and work streams. And if you don't feel you can hit a deadline or deliverable date, please communicate that, and we can try and find something that is more appropriate to the issues that might have come up. Here's some notes, left column for meetings that we would prefer are closer to mandatory for operations. And then the right column is other meetings that we may not need to be at every single one, but these are ones that we are responsible for organizing as well. So, so at least one person from operations should be present and involved in these going forward. And then be prepared, supportive, direct, and respectful. And we don't need to attend all community meetings, but we should have at least one rep at each, like what I just said. This meeting that you're attending right now happens twice monthly. If you're going to be joining operations, or if you are currently a member of operations, these are all the channels that we monitor, and you should have notifications set to, so that well, maybe not general. You don't need to set your notifications for general. That would be blown up with memes and sirs and nices and hellos. But these other ones are ones worth monitoring, and we've all got our notifications set for that. So that's where our job responsibilities lie, connected to the Discord. And anyone on the team can answer on behalf of the team. But for larger affecting decisions, please feel free to reach out in our private operations channel. That's a safe space for anyone who is a member of operations to chat about what they're seeing in any of the processes that we're doing, or get clarity or training on things. Expectations around working hours, to have a consistent schedule, to be available. Right now, we're very Denver centric. I hope in the next couple of quarters to move away from that a little bit. But it's a slow roll and a process that we have to get a little more buy-in from the rest of the work streams as well. But as we scale in the DAO, I do have hopes to be kind of a 24/7 machine. Right now, we're kind of tied to 9 to 5 Mountain Standard. So those are the hours we're kind of working with, and we can make some exceptions around different tasks and things like that. But for now, we're pretty anchored to the rest of the work streams timelines. But please be flexible. There are some people that are working on the other side of the world, even inside our work stream currently. So just being respectful of timelines and understanding what time zones people are in works. And in prod issues and things like that, sometimes we're required to work outside of those. I have not much more to say about that. You can request off time. There's some notes here on our vacation policy, our out of office policy, unlimited PTO within reason. We will be setting up an on-call schedule as our team grows further, and as the needs are built out of it. And our payments are the same as all other work streams right now, where you get paid through Colony on XDAI and your choice of XUSDC or XFOX in percentages that you can set in Sobol. So yeah, that's the team agreement. I know everyone who's on stage with me now has had a little bit of chance to read it, but not much chance to comment. So sorry to put you out in the public for commentary on this as well. But if you guys have notes, I'd love to pass the mic, or we can also see if anyone's saying anything on the stage. crickets in the stage. Okay, looks like it's just me. Well, that's the team agreement. Go ahead.
I was to say I was like I'd love to hear what maybe some other workstream people think about it, maybe because we are kind of the interconnectivity of everything, and getting that input from the outside work streams that we're working with would be really impactful to any revisions or changes or thoughts that we have going forward on it.
Yeah, totally. If there's anyone out here that wants to add their 2 cents and raise their hand or jump on stage for another work stream, we'd love your perspective. You guys are all happy and don't have anything to say, though, too. No forcing. Cool, yeah. Well, I'm just going to take that silence as unanimous approval of my thoughts on how operations is supposed to be run. This document is kind of living and breathing inside the Notion and will be maintained and updated as our responsibilities might change as well. So it's not set in stone or commandments or anything like that, but it's a good first step in the right direction on how we can continue to grow and have resources to look back on when we have miscommunications and expectations or things like that. So I think it's a foundational piece that all work streams should have. And if you are a work stream leader that doesn't have a team agreement and would like to copy mine or Diggie's, feel free to, well, I'm not going to give up Diggie's. Diggie will have to give up Diggie's, but feel free to copy mine because it's mostly started from Diggie's anyways. So, and I'm not sure what the software licensing on that is. I think it's for use. That's a joke. Okay, back to the agenda.
I would say quickly, Tyler, that I know that a lot of people in the audience and the comments were made crickets and stuff like that on the stage chat. It may seem like a lot of information to digest, everyone, but at the same time, it's a big step into being a work stream that is trying to be very open and share what we're trying to do and the responsibilities and stuff. So I understand it's a lot to digest, but at the same time, the transparency within a DAO I think is very important. Whether you take the time to digest it all or not, it's up to the individual to do that. But I think that I have to give kudos to Tyler and to other teams that are trying to do that. And it's a hard thing to do coming from a very close knit type of work environment to being very open. So it takes work.
Totally. I'm definitely one who's leaning into it, though. I'm really happy to have conversations in public and to involve more people because I think the more bright minds you add to the room, the more ideas we can get out of it. Looking back at the agenda, the next item is something that I don't have to talk about a whole bunch, and that's the first release in the new process. We did our first release of 1.0.4 through the new process that Ocean documented. I was the operations leader alongside Fox McLeod being the product leader and Josh being the release manager. And we had hopes this week of just trying to kick it off and see if there were any big unforeseen speed bumps in the process or problems and how long it would take. And honestly, it was really great. In my mind, the process was well documented. We weren't sure if we were going to get through the entire thing this week. We started on Monday evening, Tuesday morning, and we went live on Thursday morning. So a little bit of slowness in testing, but I'm knocking on wood and saying that there's no prod issue bugs that I see so far. What did you guys think of the process? And do you have any maybe notes on things we'd like to see improved inside this as we grow this out and maybe add some more flavor and color from an operations perspective to our processes?
I'll guess I'll go just so you don't have to talk the whole time, Tyler. because everyone knows I talk a lot too. Anyways, yeah, I love the cadence aspect of it. I've worked with software companies in the past, and that's kind of the way that we would roll out, or they would roll out software releases more in a organized and determined fashion. So I do appreciate that going forward as a possibility of the direction that we go.
Sorry about that.
Eh, I mean, I've kind of mentioned that this kind of leads to uh, kind of the ability to release, um, I wouldn't say better code, but more structured code, and knowing what's going to come from it, understanding the intention and the deliverables from it. So I think that's something that obviously we're going to work on during this process, and there's some things that we could definitely adapt and change and tweak a little bit. So I think it's a great first start, and I love to see where this continues to grow and go as a process, and find that it's a very important process in the step of delivering open source software that is available to outside contributors and open to the community as a whole. So that's what I'll leave that.
I can go next, Tyler, I guess. I kind of wrote these in ops private a little bit. Some stuff that I would like to see, um, like especially during the pre-testing phase, a little bit more information, either like if it's something that's very specifically and targeted, what the expected results of that PR is. So let's say that PR that pushes to fix the. Let's give an example that we're currently experiencing the approval step on ERC20 transactions on MetaMask. Specifically calling that out instead of saying fixes MetaMask transactions. The like instead of it just saying that, explain like expected functionality after PR push is to see or is approval should be happening or should be able to be pushed through after each ERC20 transaction that requires an approval. Um, so that way there's a little bit more information for us to go off of, and we're not just trying to guess or having to spend an extra 25 minutes digging into it when 30 seconds of explanation could suffice and save us a bunch of time on the testing.
Totally. Gray Machine says in the stage chat that being specific with acceptance criteria in a ticket is always vital. And I super agree with that there. And kind of surmising what you're saying there, Ron. I think one thing that maybe was loose and is undefined right now is the release notes part of this process, on how we get that collation of those different PRs, because I think if we went down to each of those individual tickets in GitHub, we would probably see some form of acceptance criteria um, written up by the initial ticket itself. I'm not sure if from that process to it getting released, if it changes, if it's going to be easier to see in the notes. And I also think that maybe I heard word about us potentially writing a script that in this process, that release note package of all those PRs could be put together so we'd be able to have one quick and easy look for it. But I do agree with you right now, the having to kind of cherry pick back and through and drive through a part of the friction point in the process currently. And and you're back.
That. Yeah, I clicked on another chat on accident. So there's another thing I have to go back to look at my notes real quick though.
Oh yeah. Did you go touch the top?
Yeah, sorry, I'm searching it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw Ocean was typing for a second too. I didn't know if he had any commentary on the release notes process here. or maybe I covered his bases. But hey, he's on stage now. What's up, Ocean? GM.
GM. No, I just was going to say I think that's definitely good feedback, and there has been some discussions around some automated tooling that can assist in that. But I think it will be an area that we just need to all improve on, because I know that there's a lot of tickets that engineering works on that aren't well defined, and so if that's the case, then it won't ever get disseminated to a release notes, no matter what tooling we use. So yeah, I think we're going to continue to revise that process. And I think that's a really good input from everyone. So appreciate that.
Another thing I thought of was linking to the PRs as well. So that way, in case we do have to dig or want to dig further into the PR, then at least we have that link available and we're not digging through the big dump of links that occurs in the PR channel in engineering.
Yeah, that should actually be easy with GitHub. So we should be able to show you guys how to get that, because we can look at the diff and it'll show all the commits, and then those commits should be associated with PRs, and hopefully the PRs are linked to issues. I say hopefully because again, that's not always happening, but most of the time it is. So that is probably just something we could address in the next cycle immediately.
Awesome. If there's some form of documentation too, or ticket writing review that operations can be helpful with too, Ocean, I know that coders don't need to be the best at writing tickets in detail to get their job done too. So wherever we can bridge the gap, we're happy to help.
Yeah, definitely. I think to Ron's point, and Ron, maybe since you brought it up, maybe you want to be the one to drive it home. We could modify the release process to just say that when that thread is first created and those basic release notes are put there, that we create a link that shows all of the PRs that are associated with this release. So yeah, do you want to take that on, Ron, of driving that to conclusion?
Yeah, I can. I just I'm definitely not on the GitHub savvy side of things, so I might need a little bit of assistance in navigating. So.
Okay, cool. Well, I think the easiest thing then would be if you just want to write like a bullet point up of summarizing what you're looking for, then maybe I can help show you how to propose a change to that document, and then that would be the next step. So yeah, if you want to just do that, ping me and we can figure it out together.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Ocean.
Definitely.
Did you have some more notes, Ron, as well, that you've been taking on the process?
I think that was it for right now. I think you had said something about how trying to kill two birds with one stone, so that way we don't have to do so much manual stuff. If there's a script that can get all this information to us at once, then it would help us. So I was just making the comments, or I was just thinking out loud about the stuff, and you mentioned that this might be able to be automated as well. So those are good things to note.
Yeah, totally. I think we can probably figure out a stopgap before we depend on automation. But yeah, I think that's a great area of focus for us to clean up and can be done pretty efficiently before the next round. Shiftier, Lich, you guys both did a lot of deployment testing in the old ShapeShift environment, and this is our first time doing kind of a whole bunch of PRs in one big push. I mean, I guess we did it once with multi-wallet Lite, and that thing still haunts us to this day. But this is the new release process, so first time for us. Did you guys have any commentary or perspectives you'd like to add about the swimmingness of this?
It went pretty well. I think everybody splitting the work between multiple wallets is going great, and I definitely want to echo the acceptance criteria that Ron was talking about of what is actually being put into the release. I think that's a really, really important point to drive home, and I'm interested to see what comes of that.
I mean, I would only say, I mean, I know I already spoke a little bit, but one thing that is going to be a transition or a different way of thinking about this cadence release versus the format that was done previously is that we have to realize the point of having a cadence and having the roll up into a release branch before it goes to main or goes to prod or anything of that nature. The testing time that is set to have before it goes into a live environment is utilized effectively to where if we do see things that are possibly not meeting the acceptance criteria or stuff like that, that we do have the ability or have the desire to send it back or pull it out of the release itself to be reworked. I'm not saying that everything has to be 100% at the time, but at least that at some point, we'll get to this point, that gives us an opportunity to identify those things and push out good code versus just pushing out code to get the code out there and then resolving the fires after they're done. And I know that, you know, this initial one was a test, and I know that we're definitely still looking to onboard outside contributors and get people involved. So it's a good thing to have little things to tweak and stuff. I get that and I understand that, but I do want to see that change of mindset that may not have been there always before, where it's just push the code and then, you know, obviously we review it internally, but we deal with the testing after the fact once the test, you know, once it's out there in the live environment, versus now where we're giving ourselves the opportunity to actually, you know, get results and be able to document those results and then hopefully, you know, attempt to fix those things or fix some of the things that are affecting it before it goes live into our customers' hands.
This is an interesting conversation, and I feel like I stand a little bit on the other side of the pendulum on this one from you, Neverwas. I mean, I think that's okay, and I don't know if we have enough time with the last 8 minutes to fully explore this, but I'm definitely of the mind that in our current state, with our desire to have more things to be bountied, if we are not introducing bugs to production that are meet the criteria of being a prod issue, then I think that we should, or even if they are a prod issue that is for a very, very small select set of users, maybe like we're blocking Trezor users from connecting or something like that, that we not push back to involve many people in the process, but that we lean into the procedures that we have.
Your microphone switched halfway through that.
Sorry about that. Still here. Sorry if you lost some of that with my mic. But yeah, that by introducing more tickets, we would have, with these issues that could potentially be one-offs that are fixable and bountyable, we could continually horizontally scale by having more new devs come in. And I feel like there's a little bit of a bottleneck from the fact that we can't write tickets fast enough for them to be completed. So we're potentially losing opportunity of new devs joining the DAO because we just don't have the body of work for them to attach themselves to yet. So not sure if that's something. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so there will be a shift. We're not there yet because obviously we're just starting and the bounty process is just starting to ramp up, and Ocean's been very instrumental in pushing that cause and stuff. But so there will be a switch eventually to where outside bounty people are going to be writing a lot of the code that is needed for these branches to be merged into a prod thing. And then it kind of, there might be a shift where engineering's job is to review the code and ensure the quality of the code and make sure that the guidance of the code is following procedure and process and best practices and stuff. And then basically when it goes to this cadence where, it goes to this release and the tests are done, it's all going to be like basically not all, but partially going to be outside contributors or bounty people that are doing this work. So yeah, right now, I mean, it's engineering that's doing the main part of the work, and then they're pushing it to prod, and then we're testing it, and it's creating opportunity for outside bounty people to do. But we don't want to get into a point where we are saying unacceptable code or code that's problematic or has problems is okay to be pushed into working, production just because. So I know that shift hasn't happened yet, but like I said, it's good to get in the mindset and mind frame what these cadence releases are meant to achieve, and they're meant to achieve to push better code, not code just to be released for and then we'll fix after the fact. So I know that we're not there with the bounty, and I definitely would like to hear if Ocean feels that that is the intent. I don't know. I just know from past, working with other software companies and stuff, what it's meant to have a controlled release cycle and how that is interpreted. But I do get your point right now, Tyler, about where we're at currently. But I don't want it to create bad habits to where it's like, okay, it's acceptable to just push this because it will be fixed later versus let's get the most of the done up front, and then the things that surprise us, the things that come up because code's never 100%, then we can deal with those things in prod.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about too is also very dependent on circumstance. So it'll always be a conversation to be had about the individual bugs that we're seeing at the time. Yeah, Ocean, did you have thoughts on us with rollbacks and bugs and the potential for bounties versus introducing bad code?
I definitely do apologize. Totally multitasking. I think I
Yeah,
understand
okay.
the question, but can you give me I want to make sure I'm answering the right question. Can you rephrase it for me?
Sure. So we're the subject we have right now is on 1.0.4 specifically. There's an issue with Yearn and balances for Portus wallet only. So it's a very small subset of our users that are being affected by a bug that they can't see the features completely. And my side of the fence would say that instead of introducing a rollback to go fix that, that in our state of maturity with the DAO, having bugs like that or other ones might be better for bounties to bring in new people right now. And then there's another side of the fence that says that introducing bad code while we do this is a culture setter that could be more detrimental than it would be if we were to just make sure that our process was always 100% clean.
Yeah, and I think a lot of ways the question comes down to like engineering standards, and I think that like there's always a tension between maintaining very high standards of code quality and test coverage and quality assurance of what we're releasing, and the need to move quickly. Obviously, the crypto space is iterating potentially faster than any space that I know of right now. So I think that the answer is that, at least how I feel about it, is that like there is a need for, even as more bounty hunters come in, for us to still maintain those engineering standards, because in some ways, if we don't, then we end up in a place where you can't ship as quickly, because every time you try to implement a feature, it becomes harder and harder, versus having like a very well defined interface that we could light up 10 different chains that are all Ethereum based in a matter of days, because it's so simplified. So I think it is definitely a trade off there, but I think that we're headed down the path to more automated testing, more tooling that would assist in maintaining those standards from like a very micro level, and then creating additional process and expectations around how we're making larger architectural decisions within the engineering team. So I think we're on the right path to kind of striking the right balance there.
I mean, I'll just expand upon my point a little bit. That the iteration process with the cadence of software releases is intended to, like you guys were saying, ensure that the code base that we want to put out there, the code quality that we want to go out there, is done effectively. So you have that intermediate step between going from PR to merge to main production. You have a step in between there where testing is done on the prod branch to then therefore ensure that the things are working as intended before it goes to production. So as was stated, right now we don't have the people that are doing the bounty work, which might be the work that is then loaded into the branch, the release branch, because right now our main engineering core team is doing that work. But eventually, I could see, the desire to have the outside contributors or whatever, doing the main brunt of the work for the core team. The core team basically just being, there to ensure that the code is meeting, the respective guidelines and standards and so forth, and ensuring that those contributors are contributing code that we want and find value in, and then basically the going to the release process, and then that going to prod. So I was just saying that we're not there at this point, but eventually we do want the cadence or the release schedule to basically work as intended, to be a buffer zone between releasing code in live that may be buggy or seem buggy to the end users, to create that buffer and create that break of not just pushing and then fixing it after the fact. So I don't know if that was all missed, but that's really what I'm saying. I don't one individual issue is not the concern. It's more of the overall process and procedure that I was talking on. But I know we're running late on time, so let me stop.
Yeah, I'm not clear, I guess, if your concern is that bounty hunters aren't involved in that intermediate step where we're essentially testing against the release branch.
No.
Or go ahead.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just saying that I think, and I could be wrong, that the intent was that we were creating this cadence process so that when we have more contributors coming on in the future, and they are being the contributors that are building the the core. I don't want to say core, the main release things that are going into the software through bounties or whatever, that this cadence structure for the release is meant to give the opportunity to test properly from whatever teams are doing the testing, if it's operations or product or whatever. And then if we identify things that may not meet the quality or the standard or actually the acceptance criteria of the project that's being done, we then can kick it back and say, well, maybe this is not included in the final release or merge to the main branch, versus just like, oh, well, let's just send it and then fix it after the fact and create more work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, again, I know that we're super late on time, but I think there's always the option to just not go forward with the release, right, and abort the release. And that is kind of talked about briefly in that document, and maybe it can be certainly built out more. But I would never feel like we have to once we get in this cadence of biweekly, I think it would be very abnormal if we never aborted a release. Like that would be probably not the right paradigm. Like, sure, if we could think that we're going to be, all of our testing would be so good that we don't have to, but there's definitely going to be times where we're just going to kick it and say, well, nope, like it's not going to get out on Tuesday. Maybe it'll make the next release on Thursday, and maybe it won't. And that's an okay thing for us to end up with. I think it's just a matter of the severity of the issues that we're finding and whether or not we think it's an acceptable user experience. Because ultimately, that's our lifeblood as customers, and if we can't release code that if it's too critical, then we're going to lose customer trust, which I think is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And not even with always having to pull back the whole release. I think that by doing this and having the different branches that go into that release branch, it gives us the opportunity of just leaving those things out of the release itself. We don't have to kill the whole release. We just scale it down or change what the release is fully going to do, and that happens a lot in software where the feature just isn't included in that individual release, but maybe the next one. And this cadence gives us that opportunity, I think, is the intent.
Yeah, we can certainly cherry pick. It can get a little hairy at times. I think the hope is that larger features would be hidden behind feature flags in general. And so like the no-go go decision wouldn't even hold up the release. It would just be that the feature flag is disabled. And that for bigger features, that's the much easier way of dealing with this problem. For smaller things, cherry picking can work, but it can also get pretty messy too. So I think it, again, it's kind of a dependent situation dependent outcome, I guess.
So I'm going to hop in here and call it now because we're definitely a little bit over time, but I think it's a really great discussion. Thank you, Ocean and Never Was, for poking at this. Thank you all for joining us. There were two things on the agenda that we didn't get to hit today, so I'll address them both in a quick 10 seconds. We didn't talk about the current bounty process that's going on, but there is another meeting that Ocean runs where they do some grooming on bounties and stuff like that. So I would highly recommend you check out that meeting to see where we are in our bounty process if you're interested in getting involved on the side of contributing that side. And then there's a POAP update. And the POAP update is we at ShapeShift have done everything that we need to do to be ready to create new POAPs. And we have a bot that has anti-farming measures in it. And it did not get fully approved by POAP recently. And so it needs to go through an another upgrade before we can use it successfully to distribute our own POAPs. So right now, we kind of got rugged by this bot, and we will not be able to generate POAPs until that bot is updated. Unfortunately, we had big plans to have first POAP for this governance call later today, and unfortunately that won't even happen. So apologies to all those involved with that. We're working our best, but it's a little bit out of our hands right now. Cool. Well, thank you all so much. We'll talk soon, and maybe I'll see you at the governance call a little bit